What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is, because people get to know you, they get to see you.
Making those efficiencies to maximise service profits as well as just product profits.
When you lose the enthusiasm, that's the point to move on.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times. And only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews, and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so, into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer, or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. Join us on this really insightful episode of ScaleUp Radio as I talk with Alexander, the Managing Director of Alexander Lyons Solution. And Alex shares how his recruitment business is disrupting the industry with their really unique approach. And they focus on providing more flexibility, better pay, and treating their recruiters, their professionals, like adults. And they create a lucrative and a really enjoyable work environment. And while their approach may not be for everyone, it helps them to attract really experienced professionals who are seeking a refreshing change and seeking essentially potentially unlimited earnings. And I think you'll find Alex's approach to a tiered basic and commission payment structure for his recruiters really interesting. So definitely listen out for that. So join us as we explore the unique aspects, the challenges that Alex has faced, the valuable lessons that he's learned from his previous business experiences, and stay tuned for an inspiring conversation on taking risks, embracing growth, and creating a thriving workplace. So let's head over and listen to Alex's story. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted to be joined today by Alex Dick, who is the MD of Alexander Lyons Solutions. So Alex, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, brilliant. So Alexander Lyons Solutions, what's that all about?
So we are endeavoring to be a fairly disruptive recruitment business. So I don't believe in doing things the same way as everyone else. So we're trying to make the industry a bit better than perhaps the perception of it is, both internally and externally. And just trying to make the world a slightly better place through recruitment, and also treating recruiters better and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a passion project as well as a business. So okay. Yeah, it's an unusual beast.
And what's in terms of being disruptive then, what are the key ways you're trying to disrupt the recruitment sector?
Give more flexibility, pay people better, treat people like grown-ups, remove a layer of pointless KPIs that exist in a large number of sales environments. And the main thing we say is treating people like adults, but also supporting people professionally, but also sort of on the pastoral care side of things, helping people when they need it. Because I'm a firm believer in, if you want people to be with you for the good times, you've got to sort of be there for them in the bad times. And life is a journey of ebbs and flows, and I'm a great believer in, you can't expect people to commit to you if you don't commit to them, and work-life balance features life in it. So making sure that a big part of what we do takes into account the fact that our our team are humans outside of work as well as in work, and we need to look after them and make sure that work is a positive impact on their lives rather than a negative impact on their lives. So sort of really taking stock of the whole human rather than the 8 hours a day we have them or whatever.
Right. And how's that reflected in things like your retention rate for your employees then?
So it's an unusual one, because I'm not going to profess we've got the best retention rate, but that's not because of our pastoral care. It's because a lot of people believe they can work in an environment where they have complete flexibility.
Yeah.
But that in reality is not for everyone. So there has been a churn. The churn, have we lost a good person who is suitable for the way we work? No. Have we ever fallen out with somebody who has left but hasn't committed a crime? We've had a couple that have committed crimes. No. So I'm still chat to most of our leavers on a almost daily basis, and we get on very well. So when we've parted ways with people, because we are a sales environment, performance is important. We've done it in a way, for the most part, that it's been a positive interaction throughout, and that continues after the fact, rather than just, you don't work with us now, do one. We're a bit more caring than that, and if we've invested in people up to that point, we're as disappointed as they are when it doesn't work out, and that doesn't require a sort of fire and fury approach. It can be perfectly pleasant, and actually a number of them may well end up coming back. It's just they joined us at the wrong time.
Yep. Because
everyone likes the sounds of our perks, but that doesn't mean it's the right time for them to be in this sort of environment, because with a lot of flexibility comes a lot of personal responsibility and all of that sort of stuff. And it's possibly been a step too far for some of our early adopters, because maybe we, and to a degree self-critically, I think we didn't make it clear enough how different we were to the environments they were coming from. So to sort of reflecting it on us, I think we were not clear enough about the negatives. We very much played on the positives, but weren't upfront with the negatives of remote working and flexible working. And if you don't have KPIs and you're used to them, you have to be very self-reliant and very self-motivated and all of that sort of stuff, which again, not everyone is. Some people believe they are, but perhaps aren't. So there's been a bit of a journey in sort of getting better at attracting the right people, because we're still quite early on in the journey.
When did you start?
So the business started in 2011, but in its current form, it was sort of a product of post-COVID and some other stuff that went on. So it was 2021 really. We started the growth bit that we're in now.
Right.
So fairly recently.
Great. And how would you describe the sort of stage that you're at in terms of your scale-up journey?
So I have quite large and significant aspirations. So I would say the early embers, or the sort of foundation stage, is where I would say we're at. I'm building a team of consistent billers that I can then leverage and work with to grow the business. So early stages, we took investment September, October last year.
Okay.
Just with dates and stuff, I'm not the best. I'm slightly unusually minded, so things like that I don't remember particularly well. But yeah, sort of tail end of last year, we took investment, and that was with a view to, once I've got that foundation there, being able to scale at pace, because the last business I was involved in was scaled pretty rapidly and went through 2 rounds of equity and sort of some other bits. So it's I'm quite used to scaling things, and this is my let's do it for me job rather than do it for other people. So,
and what's going to be the heart of your scalable business model? What's going to enable you to rapidly scale then?
So our offering is quite different to the market. So the way we work is difficult to find it replicated in the world of recruitment. So we're very light on KPIs, as in we borderline have none other than make sure you bill enough to justify your existence. But there aren't sort of how many CVs have you sent, how many calls have you made. We have complete flexibility so people can work how it suits them to work, because as a recruiter, often, say, for example, in the evenings, you might find it a lot easier to get hold of people than you do during the day. And I'm not a believer that people should therefore work from 6 a.m. because they can catch people before work to 11 o'clock at night. It's just work when suits you and your candidate base. So we're flexible around that. We're flexible where people work from. Our commission structure is quite significantly higher than the majority of the recruitment world. So our commission starts at 50% and rises to 80%. So again, that's pretty unfounded. There is a threshold, so there is a point where we've made money prior to that, but there's that side of things, and then there's unlimited paid holiday, and we've got a lot of sort of mental health support and loads of other stuff in there. So for the right people, they'll come on, have more flexibility and significantly more earning potential, and arguably be treated quite a bit better than they potentially would elsewhere. So getting that messaging out there is kind of the key pillar to our success, really, is getting the market to understand that there is a better way of doing things. And we firmly believe that we are that. But we are not perfect for everyone, just to be clear. We are the people we are perfect for is a smaller community in the recruitment world than the majority. But I'm fine with that. I don't want to be all things to all people. So I'm all right with that.
And who would you be most suitable for then?
So it's the more senior end of the recruitment world. So people who've established themselves in a marketplace, have built their reputation, and are really looking for an environment like ours where they can take advantage of the links they've built and the market they've built and all of that to be more lucrative, but also more fun. Hopefully, we're quite silly in our approach to things. So I just want people to enjoy work, and I look at a lot of businesses, and that's not held particularly high in their aspirations. Whereas for me, I firmly believe that if people are enjoying what they're doing and they're seeing the fruits of it, that a lot of positives can come from that without you having to sort of be there with a stick. You can solely use the carrot rather than the stick if used correctly. So that's our approach. Firmly on the carrot camp, not firmly on the stick camp.
Excellent. And on your LinkedIn profile, you describe yourself as the weirdest MD in the recruitment sector, I think. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I'm a bit more out there than most. So most owners of any businesses really are very concerned about how the world views them and what they can and can't say and all of that sort of stuff. Whereas I don't have any of those concerns, and I'm also not. I stopped caring what people think about me quite some time ago. So that's allowed me to embrace the weird rather than just be sort of a curated commercial lump. I think if people go on our website, if people see the content we're putting out there, see how we're engaging with people and all of that side of things, they'll very quickly realize we are not a normal business. And I don't think there's one person who's spent any real time with us, either as a supplier or as a sort of member of the team or candidate that I've been dealing with, that would say that I'm not weird. I think I definitely fall into the slightly unusual side of the working world, but quite deliberately so. I just have always been myself, and some people love it, some people hate it, and I'm fine with that. I'm at peace with who I am. So
great. Good. Well, maybe as we go through this discussion, we'll uncover some more of the weird side. Then we'll see. We'll see what we can do. So you mentioned how it's different from your recruiters aspect. What do the clients see that the people you're actually recruiting for? What's different that they would see?
So because we are effectively exclusively senior people, there's always that level of service from niche industry experts in their field. So there's not sort of the sort of grad scheme where people are just throwing CVs at a wall and hoping for the best. So a client will get a client or a candidate will be speaking to somebody who knows their markets back to front, otherwise they wouldn't be joining us, and is well versed in what is happening in it, has been in it for typically a minimum of 5 years, and has spent that 5 years doing the thing that they do and they do well. So there's sort of an expert level that perhaps is lacking in a lot of environments. But also we've been very keen to ensure we're not hiring people that think they're an extra on the Wolf of Wall Street, but actually nice humans who are in it for the right reasons, who take pride in what they do and want to deliver a decent service, because then they know that delivering a decent service helps them in the long run. So we're quite careful about who we hire. We would prefer to have a lot of nice people who are performing perhaps even slightly worse than a load of high flyers that are stereotypical recruiters in the joke version of them that are sort of think they're extras on the Wolf of Wall Street, which unfortunately do exist. So we are a friendly bunch. We've hired inherently good people. And I don't just mean good in the terms of the ability to recruit, but they're nice people who want to help out their colleagues, want to go above and beyond for their candidates and clients. So again, it's quite unusual to have a recruitment business that is exclusively senior, because the standard recruitment model is build from the bottom up. So you always inherently have a triangle shape with more junior people than senior people, whereas we're the opposite way around. We're exclusively subject matter experts in everything we do. But that's why as a business we do lots of things, because I hire people who are good at what they do, not people who are good at what I do. So hence the business is quite diverse in nature, but we are as experienced as most recruitment businesses in all of the things we do, because a lot of the people that have joined us have 20 years experience, 15 years experience, whatever, significant experience in the thing that they do. So it allows us to be experts in lots of things. And it means I've learned huge amounts about engineering and biotech and all these other things that as a lowly legal recruiter in a very niche part of legal, I had no knowledge of, but it's interesting. I enjoy learning the weird and wonderful things that I never knew existed in the world. So
yeah, well, that's one of the things that I love about what we do and interviewing lots of great people on ScaleUp Radio, of course, is I see all sorts of different industries and businesses and things that maybe wouldn't even have dreamt about. So
the world becomes more fun when you realise that it's not just that weird little bubble you live in, that there's actually a lot more to it. And I enjoy learning the new things and also seeing them grow as recruiters and people when they're with us. That quite a few of the team have said they've never been happier in a job and stuff like that. And that's the thing that actually gives me the most satisfaction, because it shows that the stuff we're putting in is actually having an impact, which in truth, a lot of businesses prioritize profit above everything else. Whereas I've kind of firmly believed that if you treat people properly, you'll get the best out of them and all of that will follow. So you don't need to prioritize that in isolation. Actually, you can prioritize just being a good place for good people, helping them to be the best version of themselves, both professionally and personally. And through that, profit will come, because if people are doing well, part of that in the world of sales is they're performing, and performance in our model brings quite a lot of reward. So it's sort of, I believe in balance, and I hope we have the right balance. I think we possibly do, but hasn't been tested yet. So we'll see. We'll see.
Great. And the investment is in mind to help you to scale. So is that going into recruitment, into systems? What's that going into? So
the systems were kind of there already. So that was what I mean by sort of being in the foundation stage. A lot of the systems were there. And the benefit of the world we exist in is a lot of that is paid for monthly. So you can kind of afford to get a lot in without having to invest millions of pounds like other businesses. Like if I'm an engineering business and I have to buy a CNC machine, that's going to cost a lot of money. Whereas the benefit of our world is it's almost exclusively digital, so everything is on a monthly thing. So a lot of that stuff we have, and we've got quite good relationships with our suppliers, which has proved to be helpful on a number of occasions. Because when I'm bringing on a supplier, I'm looking not at the moment we are now, because where we are now is irrelevant from a supplier's perspective. But I need to ensure that that supplier is capable of dealing with us if we take on 10 people in a month, 20 people in a month, go from 15 to 50, and then from 50 to 150. I need to know that they're still capable of supplying stuff, because I've seen in other businesses just stupid stuff like photocopiers, where you'll go, we're going to triple in size within the next 2 years, and they sell you a photocopier that's suitable for the moment you are now, and then 6 months down the line the photocopier is broken, and you're sat there going, we did say we're going to grow, and they're like, oh yeah, but we didn't believe you. So I'm very used to that sort of engagement. So those bits are kind of sorted. I'm not going to say they're perfect, because I'll never say anything is perfect. There's always room for growth, but that side is kind of done. So the money is there to deal with the ebbs and flows of cash flow, because we are at a world where we place someone, they have to start, and then we get paid. So there's a process with notice periods and all that sort of stuff. So it's there to allow us to continue to grow without worrying if a month is slightly lower than it should be.
Okay.
But also, let's say there's a team I'm interested in, or there's a load of people that are looking to join at once. I don't want to be in a position where I'm having to turn them away. I want to be in a position where I can say yes without having to consider the cash flow implications of that 2 to 3 month period where they're getting up and running, if they're very decent. So a war chest is the easiest way of describing its helpfulness. And we're fortunate in the respect that the war chest we have is reasonably significant in nature. So if a very decent opportunity presents itself, chances are we would be able to take advantage of that. And that's something that, if we were just doing it off of cash flow alone as the business is growing, we wouldn't be in a position to do that. So so it sort of allows us to compete on a level that perhaps we wouldn't be able to if we didn't have it. So yeah, it's to hopefully supercharge the growth, even though I'm a bit of a child. So when I first thought about growing this business, it was like, right, I need to take on 50 people a year from the get-go and all of that sort of stuff. I've calmed down now. I've grown up a bit, having made some expensive mistakes. So
need to take on 49 people a year.
Well, 48 and a half. But yeah, I'm not as concerned about the rate of growth. In truth, as long as it's ramped up by the point I wish to exit, then actually having it ramping over time is probably a better story to sell to a market or an investor than oh yeah, I took on 50 a year and here you go, draw a straight line, and that's the value of our business. I prefer that it's the old adage of a hockey stick, sort of. Yeah. We had our moment where we invested a load, then had to pay those 3 months, and then off it rocketed, and I'd like that to increase with pace, and so yeah, and in truth, a big part of our model is persuading people that the way they've always worked isn't necessarily the right way, and that there are better ways out there. And a lot of the conversations we have are around that, but yeah, I do worry about what I'm creating, because like if we stick up an ad, we get about 200 applicants a week. It's and I did one in the States, because part of our growth strategy is the States as well, because it's the recruitment market's 4 to 5 times the size there. And what I didn't realize until recently is actually recruitment is a bigger market than legal and accountancy in this country. So it's very, very significant. But in America, it's 4 or 5 times the size, with roughly the same number of recruitment businesses. Okay. And things like flexible working and unlimited holiday and work from anywhere and all of that sort of stuff. I did an experiment to see how attractive it would be, and I stuck up an ad, and within about 24 hours, we'd had over 2,000 applicants. And I then retreated back into my cave and went, let's not do this when all that relies on me. So I think the opportunity is there and quite significant. And say if you're £1 million biller with us, you're going to earn double, if not triple, what you'd be paid in a more traditional recruitment environment. So there's definitely an argument to join us from a financial perspective, ignoring all of the other stuff that comes with it. And so what we've tried to do is make it very difficult for businesses to compete with us at every step of the way. So be it flexibility or earning potential or environment, we're trying to become the employer of choice. Now, everyone says that, and whether we'll ever achieve it, I don't know. But that's our aim, and we will be doing everything we can to get there.
And how are you squaring? Because you've said a couple of times now that your recruiters can earn much more with you than they would earn. So how are you squaring that with, at the end of the day, you still need to survive, make your profits, even though it's not all about profits. I understand that, and you said that. But how are you squaring that?
Maths, as long as the maths works. So if somebody joins us, they take a salary, that salary has a threshold. That threshold allows us to cover the bare costs of them, the licensing, etc., and make a reasonable profit that most businesses that aren't in a world where we magic money out of thin air, which recruitment is, because our product has a value that we put on it, or the candidate puts on it, or the client puts on it. It's not like a loaf of bread or something that has an actual value in the traditional sense. So because of that, we're in a position where we could have people on £30,000 for billing £200,000, potentially much more. And so out of that, we are making a decent margin off of the first bit, and then we're sharing the billing with them after that. Okay. But if we're giving them, say, 50% for a period, we're still earning the other 50%.
Yeah.
And we've already covered the costs in the first bit. We're already in profit at the point that we're sharing 50%. So yes, it goes down to 20% at a certain point, but we will have made plenty of money up to that point. And yes, that recruiter will make more out of us than they would out of other businesses. But then the hope is, with everything we do, that we will end up with significantly more recruiters. So a little bit out of a lot of people rather than a lot out of a little number of people.
Yeah. Okay, so if I understand it now, you've tiered the percentages that they can earn, and that incentivizes them beautifully to want to do more.
Yeah, exactly that. So the aim is that, and that's what I say about sort of making it self-regulating, but getting the right people. You need people that are motivated to hit those goals to do better and better. But I've seen it play out. So my recruitment environment that I recruited into was a legal commission-only environment. That to a degree, I was certainly in the recruitment world one of the pioneers of that. In fact, the recruitment model that all law firms in that world work to is a model I invented. So I have placed more people in sort of commission-only type environments than probably anyone else in the country, certainly if you take into account legal, by a mile. And so I'm very used to explaining to people how commission structures can benefit them hugely and all of that. And that was trying to sell to lawyers that they should destroy their salary completely and go completely self-employed and only get paid what they bill. Whereas with a recruiter, we're saying, yeah, no, we'll pay you a salary. You tell us what salary you want. And as long as the math works, we will pay that. And it's an interesting dynamic because some people go for huge salaries and other people go, well, actually, hang on a minute. The higher my salary, the bigger the threshold. And you're like, yep, risk, reward, that's how it works. So I'm not going to negotiate that hard with you to not take that high salary because I'm going to be better off if you do it. But equally, just so you're aware, for every X you take, that's going to cost you Y, because salary is paid at a worse rate than the commission is paid. So, and again, it's a concept that most recruiters aren't used to, because most businesses are like, you get 10, 20% commission, but your salary, effectively, you're getting 100% of initially. And so it gets worse for them, whereas we get better for them. So it's turning it on its head.
Yeah, I like that for all sorts of aspects. You know, that's one of them, because it doesn't put a cap on what they can earn and therefore encourage them to go. And I like it also because it's helping them to think in a way about the break-even point. Yeah. Because so that you're getting to think a bit like a business person. that helps you, because that's actually, and as you say, it can cater for, if I've got a higher risk threshold than somebody else, then I might go for the more commission structure. But if I haven't got a lower one, then I might want to go for a higher base rate. But
exactly. And we give them a level of control over that again, it isn't really there in the market. Most people are, I pay a senior consultant this, I pay that. And the first thing when somebody goes, so what do you pay your senior consultants? I'm like, the lowest I will pay is 20. I haven't worked out what the highest I will pay is yet, because that entirely depends on someone's ability to sell me on the reason they should be on that amount of money. So,
nice.
But I won't go below 20 because there's that break-even point where I need to cover the various costs for the model to work. But yeah, that's it. It does make for very interesting conversations very quickly, and you see a very different side of people, because it becomes like a sort of almost like a joint venture conversation or a business partnership, rather than it being strictly employer-employee. And some people love that conversation, and in truth, other people hate it. But the ones that hate it probably aren't suitable for us in the first instance.
Exactly. It helps you all round, because it means the ones that do end up working with you are probably the ones that are going to make that work. And
exactly. Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. So what are some of the key challenges and changes that are going on in the recruitment sector? Because obviously we've been through for all sectors, but certainly with recruitment, we've kind of been through multiple phases with throughout lockdown and the other side. Where's it all headed? What are the big challenges and trends at the minute?
So my view differs from a lot of people, because a lot of people sit there going, oh, the market's terrible, but they're comparing it to 2021 and 2022, and they're like, look, if you're a hospitality recruiter in that time, you had a tough time, but most other sectors were absolutely booming, and recruitment had the biggest turnover it ever had in terms of fees generated, and businesses boomed. And they're comparing it to that. But is the business currently materially worse than it was in 2019, 2018? No, it's not. But the model has changed. Where the recruitment businesses were building delivery models where they had clients that were booming, so they just hired people to throw CVs at them. I'm not a big fan of the delivery model, so and I'm quite open about that. Now they're in a situation where they need people to be actually looking for opportunities, because some of those clients now have hiring freezes, because a lot of them were sort of big tech companies and stuff like that that massively overhired and are now shrinking back a bit. So the skill set has changed, and I've always been a believer in a 360 recruitment model where the recruiter is in charge from the second they take on a client or take on a candidate to the point that it's placed and finished and everyone's happy. I've always believed in that as a model, because I just find it more interesting in nature. The delivery model isn't that. The delivery model is you have an account manager, you have a consultant that deals with the candidate, and you have a resourcer that finds the candidate, and you might have a BD person that goes and finds you more stuff. And that model is struggling a bit now, as is an RPO model where you just chucked 20, 30 people in a client that's growing massively and you took a margin. And those things are having a tougher time. And the TA sort of talent acquisition, which is more the internal side of it, and the RPO side of it, recruiters are either struggling or there's a huge number of them that are looking for work. So that side of the market's tough, but are there not enough opportunities for recruiters to make money? There's plenty of opportunities, but you need to go into it with a business mindset. So you need to look at what's working, what's not, what clients are likely to pay you, what clients aren't, where do the opportunities exist, because there's still a shed load of opportunity out there. But like everything in life, if you're not willing to pivot at a point you need to pivot, chances are you're going to struggle. Like that chap who said nobody's ever going to have a computer in their house, well, he probably should have pivoted at that moment where perhaps he didn't. And so I think the market is depressed compared to where it was a year or two ago. But is it depressed to Lehman Brothers collapsing 2008, 2009 levels? No. There are no statistics saying that that unemployment is spiraling out of control and all of that sort of stuff. It's the market is still there. People are still hiring. Businesses are still growing. So, and of course, there's the normal churn. There's the normal people that are leaving because they're going to do other things or retiring, and that side of things hasn't dropped off of a cliff. So, yeah, I don't think the market's in a particularly bad spot, but I'm also a great believer in the economy not being in a particularly bad spot. I think there's lots of reports about how terrible the cost of living is and all of that sort of stuff. And of course it is. Everything is much more expensive than it was, but the whole time employment is still there. Chances are we can muddle our way through. The second employment disappears, we've got a problem, but we're not there yet. So I think actually the economy, given the shock it's had over a number of things, the fact that we're still floating, even very sort of tenuously, but we're still floating, is almost miraculous in nature. So I think I'm a great believer in the glass is half full. I always have. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't believe that. And I went through some pretty traumatic stuff in 2020, which is one of the reasons why I'm adjusting the way my business and everything. There was a reason for that. So I won't allow myself to ever believe that the glass isn't half full. I don't see that as a leader of an organization being overly helpful. I think every problem has a solution, and if it doesn't, there's nothing you can do about it anyway. So let's always drive it forward rather than sit there going, oh, the market's terrible, let's collapse. There's opportunities out there, and yeah, I think the world could be collapsing around me, and as I say, in 2020 there were moments where that was happening, but you're at a fork in the road in those moments, and you can either choose to harness that energy and try and turn it into something positive, or let the world collapse around you. And I'm not really a collapse around you kind of guy, to be honest. I'm more of a like when the cards are down, get on with it and fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that you've been involved in a business before that had scaled rapidly. So what are some of the things that you've learned from that you're bringing into your business now?
You'll make a lot of mistakes. That's one of the things. And learn from those mistakes pretty quickly. Otherwise, it's very expensive. Surrounding yourselves with the right people. Surround yourselves with people who are better than you are at various things. Don't be scared of people who are better than you. Because if you're the best at everything, you're going to be the biggest weakness in your business. I think my view is always be able to pivot. Never put yourself in a position where you're so stuck on one thing that if that thing collapses, you've got a problem. Again, easier said than done. I'm in a world where we magic things out of thin air, so it makes life easier. If you're selling a product and the demand for that product disappears, then that's possibly more problematic. But also prepare for the worst and then be pleasantly happy if that doesn't happen. So although I'm not a pessimist, that doesn't mean I sit around being blissfully unaware of the fact that things can go wrong and cash flow hurdles can appear. And for me, as an example, that's why we looked at investment and took on investment, because even though I think the world is delightful and everything's going to be perfect, I'm equally aware that I could just as easily step on a landmine tomorrow and need to be in a position to deal with that. And partially that's why I try and surround myself not with yes people, but with people who will challenge me and people who will tell me I'm being an idiot and all of that sort of stuff, and not fear the ramifications. And again, part of, in my view, being a leader is empowering the people around you to challenge you rather than rule out fear. And I've seen that play out on a number of occasions where people have ruled by fear, and that's hugely hampered them more longer term, because they run out of ideas, and the second they run out of ideas, or they keep coming up with bad ideas and everyone tells them they're marvelous because they're too scared of the fire and fury that will come their way if they're challenged. And I'm the opposite. I prefer, my default is I go into most things thinking I'm an idiot, and if people agree, I then go, maybe I'm all right. Whereas going into things thinking I'm a genius and then getting it wrong. I always use Sinclair as the example, because he sort of had the computers and the calculators and the microchips and all that sort of stuff and was hugely successful. And my grandfather worked with him at the point that Amstrad was involved. But of course, he went from that to creating the C5, which arguably in the modern world was quite a clever thing, but sort of back in the 70s, 80s, it was a terrible idea. Yeah. And yeah, that basically, to all intents and purposes, destroyed his empire because he believed he was a genius. And I think there's a massive risk, especially with business people that have been successful, believing their own hype and yeah, losing that humble nature that makes you question what you do. But it's the reason why we could be the fastest growing recruitment business, that we could be the place to work for every top level recruiter in the country. And I would still be critical of the business. I would still be sat there saying, what can we do to improve this? Why didn't we get that person? What happened here? Because I don't think you get better by thinking you're amazing. I don't think that's the path to greatness. I don't.
Yeah, definitely good. So, what kind of investor, by the way, is that business angel? Is it a venture capital group or something else?
It's a private chap that I met about something entirely different. So he wanted to talk to me about what he wanted to do with the business he owns. He owns a few. And that business, he was thinking about putting it into my specialism in recruitment, so my niche. And he made the fatal mistake of saying, so tell me a bit about your business. And so I told him a bit about my business, and he went, well, that's significantly more interesting than what we were going to discuss. And sort of over the summer last year, we went from sort of a one random conversation to me regularly being at his house and him coming to my house. And it kind of sort of spiraled from there, really. And it was nice because it sort of demonstrated that my, to all intents and purposes, harebrained scheme wasn't so daft, because this chap's from an insurance background, so he's got a very, very different mindset. It's risk and all of that sort of stuff. And for him to see the benefits of that was nice and affirming, which is positive.
Yeah, definitely. And what have you learned? What advice would you give for other founders thinking about taking on some investment?
Going with your eyes open. It's not always going to be rosy. You go from being an owner to not having a boss, but you have to justify yourself in a way that you may have to a boss, but without them being your boss. Treat those people with respect, be honest. The biggest thing is be honest. Don't go into it telling porcupines, because it will come out and it will be messy. So just and do it if you need it. If you don't need it, don't, because I'm not in bed with the devil by any means, but I've seen plenty of that happen with friends' businesses, with people I know, where they've gone from being this sort of utopian dream they have to overnight becoming something entirely different because they sold their soul to the devil. So I think being very cautious about the type of investment you take, where you get it from, what their expectations are, the controls that they have versus the controls that you have. Like I know a chap who went into bed with a PE house, and the whole idea was that he could acquire businesses, and with that he would grow his business, and it looked like it was going well. He was buying businesses left, right, and centre, but what he didn't realise is every time he was doing it, he was actually diluting himself without even realising.
Right. And
so he was growing this behemoth of a business, but went from owning 50% to owning 10% without even realising that was happening. And by the time it happened, it was too late. And of course, he's suing his former lawyers for negligence and all of that sort of stuff. And of course, he's now got a smaller cut of something that's much larger and much more valuable. So you may argue that that's a success, but that's only a success if you were aware that that was happening. And if perhaps you weren't aware that that was happening, what you've created is you naively took money because you got excited about the fact that someone was willing to give you money for something. And in the end, you ended up with a lot less off at the back of it. And I was I didn't sell anything. I gave the shares to the person who was sticking money in. So I didn't take a penny out at the point of investment for that reason.
Okay, and just on that, without I don't expect you to give away too much, but how did you come to decide how many shares to give away? Basically, how did you go around valuing a business that sounds like at that stage was very much early stage and kind of on the hope of what it might do?
Yeah, so I guess to a degree I have a pedigree in what I'm doing, so it's not like I haven't played a pretty crucial role in building something pretty successful previously. So, of course, that was heavily leveraged because it'd be silly not to. But then to a degree, explaining, look, you can be along for the party or not. We actually don't need you at this moment. So, yes, okay, it's difficult to value in the traditional sense, but do you want to be part of the party? If the answer is yes, and you can see where we're going and you want to be part of it, this is the price of admission. And being comfortable with saying that and comfortable with the journey that you have and being able to evidence that the journey is possible, actually, whilst also being happy to walk away, does make it compelling for the right person. Would a PE house have backed us? Probably not. Not without taking a lion's share of the business. But an individual that can see an opportunity that he wants to be part of is a different story.
Right.
And that's what we were selling. Here's the opportunity. At that point, we really liked him. We built that rapport and relationship. So does he at that point want to be part of that journey? And if he does, there's the price of it, and that's what we will return to you from that. And the benefit of us is, if it goes the way we firmly believe it can, it will go from being not that valuable to very valuable in a fairly short period of time, and is doing that as we speak. So the benefit of hiring good people that bill a lot is turnover and things like that go from nothing to significant. If I take on £1 million biller, we've just gained £1 million in turnover, and a nice chunk of that is profit. So we're not a business that has to buy a bigger warehouse to have more stock to sell more money, so that the overhead cost goes up dramatically. Our overhead is salary and tech and stuff. But that's quite manageable compared to a lot of other sectors.
And because of the way you've structured it, it's not like you're taking on the full cost of an employee, and therefore that's your rate limiting step. It's all nicely done with the percentages and the tiers that you.
So we'll pay them roughly a market rate salary or whatever they want. But yeah, look, with a recruiter, if they're good, they're going to want to be performing pretty quickly. Because at the end of the day, they're going to want that commission. So they don't want that to get further and further away. So they're going to come in and they're going to start performing. So our risk profile is over a fairly short period of time. It's not like we're investing in I always use machines because it's the easiest thing to compare it to because it's tangible. Or building a house. It's not like I have to buy the plot of land, spend 2 years building a house whilst fighting with a council over getting an extra square foot here, sort of thing. I hire someone, they bring clients on board, they find candidates, they make placements, or they come on board, they find candidates, they send them to clients and they make placements. So it becomes quite apparent quite quickly whether somebody is going to do well and not. So a good example, we've had a chap who's been with us 2.5 months, and I've literally asked everyone today to do a pipe of what they've got for something. And his pipe is worth just shy of £200,000. And that's not him going, oh, I'm going to place this person who's the CEO of whatever, and they're going to be on £1 million and I'm going to get 30% of that. That's loads of £5,000 fees and £6,000 fees and £3,000 fees. But he knew he had the relationship. So he knew he had people that would use him. So he went out to the people he knew would use him, who said, we've worked with you for ages. He's a bit mad. We've worked with you for ages. Of course, we will continue to work with you. Here are your roles. And of course, then he just had to find candidates. And so he sent us his report at 2, completely wrong, mind you, because as I say, he's a bit mad. So sent that report, and then literally 20 minutes later is WhatsApping me going, is this report set in stone, or can I edit it as the day goes on? Because literally as it was happening, people were calling him saying, oh, you sent us this CV. Could we set up an interview? Could we do this? Could we do this? Actually, we really like that person. Could we see them again? And that's the thing. If you get the right people who have the right motivations, they do very well. And that chap wanted to be commission only. I said no, because that's not our model. But actually, he wanted commission only. He didn't want a salary at all, because he wanted to get to the 50 to 80% as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So
right, good. Just going back to your investor, just one thing there, because you mentioned the pitfall that the chap who took PE investment fell into with the dilution. Did you do anything special with the shareholding?
No, very boring.
Just basic 10%. Shares. That's it. No preferential shares, anything like that.
He got 10% normal shares, and at the same time, I gave Rob, my ops director, 10% because he's been with me through when my wife was very poorly and stuff like that. He was one of the first people to be by my side, so he's more than earned his seat at the table. But our equity will be devolved amongst the staff over time anyway. So So I'm not hugely precious on equity. I am actually happy with having a smaller part of a big lump. So I want to make a lot of people very comfortable by the end of this. That's the plan.
Good. Well, I think there's lots that we could. So we could probably talk for another hour. Can I come to a couple of quick closing questions?
Yeah, of course. Of course can. Yeah.
Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? What does 5 years look like?
Much bigger than I am now. Much less stressed than I am now. So in 5 years' time, I want the foundations of the growth of this being fairly implanted, and the sort of marketing efforts and everything that we're putting in now being fairly entrenched, so that we go from being a minnow that nobody knows or cares about to being a lump that people are talking about and are aware of. That if I'm around that in 5 years' time, I'm going to be pretty happy.
Brilliant. Good. If you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Don't listen to the people that were quite rude about me because of learning difficulties. So ignore them. Always try your hardest. That, to be honest, is the advice I give everyone. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Don't do things by halves, because I don't think there's many people that have been successful by doing the barest minimum. I think if you're going to do something, go for it, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. I've made a lot, like way more than I've had successes. I think the difference between me and a lot of other people is the speed at which I pivot from a mistake. I will be within an hour or two, not within 3 weeks of moping. I'm like, that wasn't good. Right move, change. And so pivot. That's one of my things.
Yeah, fail fast, as the expression goes. Good. How do you improve yourself with the self-development? What learning resources? Any books, podcasts, any courses?
A lot of podcasts, because I want to get quite into it myself. So awful lot of podcasts.
Any particular ones you'd recommend?
So I really like the Disruptors podcast because it's so weird in nature, because it's not just business people. Because what I found is a lot are quite pigeonholed, whereas that can go from a really quite toxic social media person through to a really successful business person, through to an athlete, through to a performance coach, so it's so varied in nature. And I quite like variety, because I'm a great believer in you can pick up things from loads of different people doing loads of different things. So that's my main go-to. I watch quite a lot of funny ones now as well, in truth, because I found it's a good way to learn. I'm not great at reading. I'm very, very dyslexic. So actually listening and watching things is in truth how I am comfortable assimilating information. So I do a lot of that. I also, my chairman is a very different human to me, so he's very useful. I also have a reasonably successful network of people who aren't afraid to tell me when I'm being daft, who we've all kind of helped each other out along the way. So that helps. And look, every opportunity for me is an opportunity to learn. So if I'm ever speaking to anyone, I'm doing it with a view to assuming they're way better at whatever we're talking about than I am, and hopefully assimilating knowledge from that. And so basically just acquiring knowledge wherever I physically can, and realizing that I'm an idiot, and basically accepting that, and surrounding myself with people who are idiotic potentially in different ways.
I love it. Great, good. Yes, what were you? We're the idiot of the 6 idiots we surround ourselves with.
Yeah, exactly. Just we are some of our parts, and if you surround yourself with the right people, I think it's a recipe for success. So.
Good. All right. Any particular apps that you found really useful that you might have on your phone, or bits of technology, bits of software, anything like that?
The answer to that should be yes, but the honest truth is no. So we've got some sort of mental health support and coaching stuff that we use that I've tried myself that's been pretty good. So it's a company called Employ Mind, which is pretty cool. But in truth, I prefer learning from humans. It's just the way my brain works. If I have a computer program telling me to breathe, I'm just like, shut up, stupid computer. But if a human was telling me the same thing, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, fine. So yeah, I'm a bit of a, I embrace technology fully, but equally I'm mentally a bit of a Luddite. I need a human to tell me something rather than a program.
Okay. So on that then, who has had the most influence on you, maybe as a leader?
Well, quite a lot of people. So early stages, people like Richard Branson, because actually so I'm dyslexic. He's very dyslexic, and I was fortunate at a certain point to be able to meet him and discuss the challenges I was having in that moment. So that made a big impact on me. But to be honest, like most people I've come across have had an impact. I'm not someone that kind of hangs my hat on any one person, because I think every person I've ever come across has great strengths, but also great weaknesses. And some have been self-aware enough to be aware of that, and others perhaps haven't. But what I've tried to do is take the best from everyone I've come across and their views, and equally potentially become quite argumentative and discount the stuff that I wholeheartedly disagree with, but be open to people persuading me otherwise. So I'm quite an open individual. As I say, I start from the perspective of, I think I'm a moron. So anything that I can take on that sort of dilutes that moronic nature slightly is a benefit, really. So
excellent, good. And what's your most successful marketing tactic? And I guess primarily, because your recruiters are finding the clients by and large, and the candidates. So you're all about finding the recruiters, right?
Yes.
From what So what's your most successful word in that? Is it the LinkedIn ads that you mentioned earlier?
So LinkedIn is our playground for attracting recruiters, because although recruiters forget that the rest of the world doesn't live on LinkedIn, recruiters do. So we have a fairly rapidly expanding presence on LinkedIn. We're gaining about 2,000 followers a month on the company channels, and a reasonably large chunk of mine, and that's all organic. We don't pay a penny for advertising or anything. But we do that just by being real and being happy to say things that other people aren't. And it comes back to what I said at the beginning, not really caring what people think about us. So someone recently described us as professionally unprofessional. And I thought that's a pretty good view, because I will say anything, and I will argue with trolls as the owner of the business. I will chat about anything. I will take the mick. I will joke about situations. And I think people quite enjoy that. And we just try and put our messaging out there that owners of businesses don't have to be horrible to get the best out of people. You don't have to rule with fear. You can manage with kindness, and you can support people to be their best. You don't have to force people to be their best. And just putting messaging out there like that. Like the last 2 days, for example, we've done posts on sort of a handbook on how not to be a manager, basically, sort of toxic management. And the number of messages I've got from people that have been really nice, just saying, oh, it's so nice to see people actually sort of taking the mick out of environments that a lot of people find themselves in, and telling people to be better. And so it's kind of just really going heavy on that. And content is key. Be consistent. That's the one thing I would say is be consistent. Right. There is no point in putting up one message every 6 months expecting an audience to engage with it. I am putting something up once or twice every day without fail. We do recordings so I'll have meetings with the marketing team that we record, or they'll send me stuff to record, and that will create a bank of posts. And like I've done some podcasts recently, and again, take snippets from that. You've got content you can get. So content, and variety of content. Nobody wants to see the same rubbish every day, because they'll just mute you, because they'll be like, this is boring. So yeah, just have fun with it. If you wouldn't enjoy what you put out, chances are everyone else is going to go, this is not enjoyable. Whereas if you have fun with it, chances are people will engage with it. So yeah, I think consistency. That's the one thing. I waffle. I'm a recruiter, but consistency.
Perfect. That's brilliant. Thank you, Alex. And I've had a blast listening to you. Thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today. Thank you for having me, genuinely. Thank you for having me. My pleasure. And if people would like to get hold of you or find out more about Alexander Lyons Solutions, what's the best way for them to do that, Alex?
So most people would say their website, but mine is literally a daft in nature. So LinkedIn is probably the best way. All of the team are there. You can find me, Alex Dick, on LinkedIn. I'm easy enough to find. I think my current picture has a child on my shoulders, which, just to be clear, is my child. It's not some random child. And so, yeah, that's typically the best way to engage with us and the platform on which we exist. But that will change. We're embracing TikTok and we're embracing Instagram and other stuff at the moment, and have hired someone to do the TikTok and Instagram side of things as of last week. So yeah, increasingly there, but currently, like all recruiters, LinkedIn. Very boring.
Fantastic. Alex, thank you very much indeed for being my guest today on ScaleUp Radio.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.